Hey guys, thanks for tuning in today. I'm going to put together a little guide and some instructions for installing Bluewater LED lights onto your bass boat, trailer, whatever you may want. This guide is set up for how to run and connect wires for LED strips in a Triton bass boat. As you can see, I've got them on my trailer in all the rod boxes and on the decks of my bass boat, and they're very handy. Use them more than anything else I've ever installed. Remember to subscribe to our channel if you like what you see. Thanks for watching.
Boom!
That's a good fish, Carson.
We got a limit.
Okay guys, go ahead and go to bluewaterled.com and check out all of their products. They've got tons of information on there about the types of products. They've got all the boat lighting, boat trailers, kayaks. As you can see, we've done a lot of kayak installations, which are great. But I think you can get things for utility trailers. You can get things for your motorcycle, golf carts, all sorts of things. So they're all pretty similar. They have sales, everything. Remember to use discount code Carson anytime you order anything, and it will save you 15% off. When you go to your shopping cart, you'll just type in Carson as shown here, and as you can see, a $202 ultimate knot light kit. It's gonna knock 30 bucks off. So go try it, check it out. Okay everybody, so as we get started with this guide, keep in mind that this is not something from Bluewater or anything. This is just something that I put together because I've had several people ask me about my lights, and I put this little guide together basically for people who have little to no experience taking on a project like this. So the first thing I want to talk about is some of the materials that you might need. By all means, you don't need all of these. You might. Just kind of depends on your application and how you like to do things. So I put this together for a guy originally a couple years ago, and he had never done anything like this. I'm not even sure if he knew how to splice together a couple wires to make a connection. So hopefully this will help some people out there. I've shared this several times on some Facebook groups and websites. And I'll go ahead and get started. So materials list, first thing you're going to need is some wire. I like to use this 2-conductor wire from Radio Shack. It's like an 18 gauge wire. It's got 2 wires in it, so you only have to run it once from one end to the other. And typically I will start it at the power source and run it whichever direction I need, and cut it, splice everything together, and continue on. What I've been calling that is the highway, and you'll see that throughout this guide referred to as the highway. See it right down here. That's just the term that I use to call out the wiring. So anyway, try to get the 22 gauge if they have it. Some of the pictures you'll see in this guide, you'll notice that I don't necessarily use this in these pictures, because I think the first time I wired up some Bluewater LEDs, I used 2 different strands of wire, single wire, one for the ground and one for the power. You'll want some silicone. You'll want some of that for any holes you drill that you want to make waterproof, especially for the live well. And I'll have pictures of where I drilled my live well holes and put the lights in, and then use the silicone to plug it up and make it waterproof. You should be able to get that about anywhere. If you look at these URLs that I've got in here, that's where I got them. So those are not going to be clickable URLs in this video, but you should be able to go to Lowe's or Academy or anywhere to get those things. Wire nuts. So I would suggest getting a pack of wire nuts in different sizes, and look up how to use those if you're not sure. There's all kinds of other wire connectors that you might use. This particular one I think comes with the trailer kits that you buy from Bluewater LED. So if you buy a trailer kit for your boat trailer, you're probably going to get some of these T-tap connectors. These are actually pretty awesome. If you look at this, the way they work is this piece right here will clamp down onto an existing wire in your boat, so you don't even have to cut your factory wiring, and this metal piece will actually pierce the housing to get the to get into the current in there to do that. So then basically what you do is you clamp those on there, and then these other pieces fit right into there, and then you crimp the end of a wire down on there. And I'm telling you, you can hook these up, a trailer kit on your boat trailer, in 30 minutes with these things. It's super easy. Some more supplies you might need: black electrical tape. Even if you use the wire nuts, I always use the electrical tape because I like to make sure it's going to be secure. I've had these on my boat trailer for over 3 years now, and I've never had any of them stop working, come undone, or have any kind of shorts or anything. You'll need a drill and a bit. It's also a good idea to get a voltmeter and learn how to use it. You can get those really cheap at Harbor Freight if you don't want to spend any money on one, but they're handy to have. And you know, you don't have to have this if you install these exactly like I did, but I would pick some up. Wire strippers, you're going to need those, and you might want to practice a little bit with it if you've never done that. There's kind of a trick to it, but it's not hard by any means. So don't get scared by some of these things. Anybody can do these things. Duct tape, you always need duct tape and zip ties when you do any kind of project, so make sure you have some ready. I like to use vice grips to crimp down my electrical connectors. Strong pliers, sometimes if you have a really stubborn connector, it doesn't crimp down on the wire very well, so vice grips, you can really dial those in and get a good strong connection. So depends on the connectors you need. You may not need them. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is look at your kit. So whatever kit you get, sort out your strips. I'd go ahead and hook them up one by one to a battery. Just touch the ends to the positive and negative on the battery. Just to make sure you got the right color. Shouldn't be any problem, but just in case, if you order red and they sent clear ones or something like that, you can double check all of them and make sure they all work and everything. Should be good. It's a very high quality product, and they've been around a long time. So if you have multiple colors, really you want to lay those out on your boat and kind of plan where you want to put those. So one of the things that I've drawn up here, if you can see this red line, these represent the red lights that I put on the deck of my boat. So what you'll see here is actually 8 strips here. You'll see 6 red strips and then these white ones down here. I wanted the red ones on the deck, and then I wanted white ones down under my legs to illuminate the cockpit area so I can really see what I'm doing. So when you go to install these, just take your time. It's not that hard. They stick really well, so make sure you clean the surface and you get it ready and put it where you want on there. For the back deck, I just drilled little holes basically right here and ran the wires right at the end of the strip straight down into the hole and down under the deck. Okay, that area in there, underneath it, it's not a waterproof compartment. You're going to have water draining in there from your drains, and your bilge pumps will pump that out, so no worries there at all. For the ones up front, it was a little trickier because I didn't want to drill any holes up in here in the deck because it goes into the rod lockers, so I didn't want to do that. So basically, if your boat's like mine, it has these rod straps. My boat has them on both sides, and if you can see these 2 lights up here, you can't hardly see it, but I ran them right into the rod strap and down in there, and you can access that through your rod locker compartment. So that's how I did it. You can do it any way you want though. Alright, so once you get your strips lined out and you know where you want to put them, you may have bought a kit that has the rod lockers too, or all the compartment lights, which I did. My kit has them all through the deck and every compartment and the live wells. So I planned all that out ahead of time, and I kind of knew where I wanted to mount the light strips and how to run the wiring. I had to make a decision on where I wanted to tap into the power source, and I think a lot of people, this is pretty much where they get confused and they're not really sure what to do. So probably what you want to do, the easiest way I can tell you is if you have this auxiliary light on your console, it's a perfect way to get into your power source. Otherwise, you have to start at your battery, and you can do that. You can hook them up at the battery and run them from the back. I wanted my lights to just come on when I turn this on, so every light in the boat comes on when I do that. Now I do have a switch where I can turn those off if I want to, but it always just pretty much stays on. So just hook into that if you want. It's pretty easy. So basically, if you look under your console, you'll have this is the back of that courtesy light. So you'll have these 2 wires, and you can see I actually use the T-tap connectors that I talked about earlier. This red one is clamped down and into the current in that red wire. Same thing with this black one, and then these purple ones hook right into it, and then I run my source off of that. So basically, I ran a strip of wiring off of the positive and negative there to start out my highway, as I call it. So look at this guide. There's other resources out there too, guys. You can look at videos on YouTube on how to install these. Definitely put an inline fuse in place. Usually a 3 amp fuse is fine. I think that's the purple one. You can buy those at an auto parts store. I think Walmart. You can get them about anywhere. I would go ahead and do that on the positive side. And basically what you would want to do is, you can't see it here, but I think what I've done here is this red wire right here is the end of this fuse, but you can't see it in the picture. So the red wire would go to that. Somewhere in there I do have a fuse. Again, you can go off the battery if you need to. So also you'd want to do a fuse there, but it's a whole lot, in my opinion, a whole lot easier and a whole lot better if you just go off an existing wire. So before you start running your highway, make sure your power source is off in the back of the boat. In my boat, there's several switches to cut off the main power from the batteries and stuff. You want to make sure you do that. Otherwise, you could short things out. It'd be really easy to do. So go ahead and do that. So a lot of times I'll splice like a 2 or 3 foot section right off of like that courtesy light, and then start splicing them in. And design, I basically ran a front highway and a rear highway. So if you look at this diagram, the red is the positive and the black is the negative. I went off the auxiliary light, the fuse, and these are the small 2 or 3 foot sections off the main light, and then I ran both the front highway and the rear highway. So basically what you're going to do right here is you're going to make a joint where you're going to cut that wire. You're going to have raw wire in 3 sections, right here, and right here. And basically you twist them all together, put a wire nut on it. It's pretty easy. Same thing with the black ones. So if you use that 2 conductor wire, you just split the 2 apart. It's really easy to do. So the front highway I have on my LED strips. So up in the front I've got basically 4 strips on the deck, right? And that's 2 on each side if you saw in the pictures. And then I have my compartment lights, which is 2 rod lockers, and then the middle one. So that's why you see 5 here. So those represents LED strips. And as I go through there, I would cut the highway, splice in, hook the highway back up, go to the next one, cut it, splice in, and so on and so forth till the end. And these are low voltage systems. You can cut and splice about as many as you want in there. So if you could get all of the light strips to come together in one joint, that's easier. You can't always do that though. Then for the rear highway, as you can see, I've got my live well lights right here. And then I've got 2 deck lights, and then I've got a couple of compartment lights, and I think my diagram's not right because I also have 2 of the lights down in the bottom of the boat, the cockpit ones. So so basically I've got 8 lights back there instead of 7. So anyway, if you're still not sure about splicing a 12 volt system, look it up. You can find all kinds of stuff on YouTube or just by Googling it. So most of your LED strips, you're gonna access those pretty easily. Like I mentioned earlier, for the front, I ended up running them through these rod buckles right here. So that was pretty easy. For this one right here, as you know, I started off that console light and I ran basically the highway into here where I cut it, and that's what this circle represents here, is where I actually made a splice. So you can read through this guide and it kind of explains it. You also have an ice chest there. I didn't put one in the ice chest, just didn't get an extra strip, and I didn't drill it. It's no big deal. So I didn't do that. But my front highway runs under the console into this rod locker, and then it runs into this middle one, and you do have to drill holes in between them. Sometimes that can be a little bit nerve-wracking to drill a hole in a boat, but trust me, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Go ahead, and then you would hook up your middle light in there, run the highway again into this rod locker, hook that lot up, and then from that point is where I made the connection for both of these two strips. So really that's all you had to do for the front. Everything's easy and done. Okay, for the back highway, it was a little more difficult because it's hard to run a wire from this area to the back here. Once you get it back here, you're good, because your red strips that I put in here, both of the factory LED strips will reach that far, so you can make a connection back in here. You might have to get a flashlight and reach up in there, and you can do that. So basically, once I figured out how to run it down through here, and I will explain that, but once I figured out how to get it back through there, it was really easy to hook all these up. I mean, I had this light strip, I had this box, 2 live wells, this box, this light strip, and also I forgot earlier, I do have a light strip in the battery compartment back here, so that's how I ran those. So anyway, so there is a rubber boot right under your dash there. That's where you'll see a bunch of other existing wires in there. That's where I ran my rear highway. I just ran it right through there with all the factory boat wiring. What I would recommend is getting an old fishing rod or a wire tape or something and trying to snake that highway wire to the back. It can be done. I think I did use an old fishing rod that had been broken, or the eyes were broken off or something, and I just duct taped the wire to it and I shoved it back there, unhooked it, and then pulled the rod out. It was back there. It was not a big deal. Okay, so looking at my boat, if yours is similar, you're going to have that rubber boot down here. One thing I did is I did take this plate off, not because you're going to run any wires in there, but because I wanted to be able to get in there with my hands and try to pull the wire through to here. And it was easier to pull the wire from the rubber boot to here and then hook it to my fishing rod and shove it down the boat to get through there. Here's a picture of the rubber boot. So now another thing I did, and you might see in some of my pictures, is like you'll see this red plastic piece. Some of these things are things you can buy at like Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's basically wire management that you can run wires through, like your home theater system and stuff like that. I use those for stretches that I needed to hide the wires a little bit. For instance, from down here to the floor that go to the strips that are under my seat. So here's some more pictures. Here shows the front deck lights and how I ran those into the rod buckles. You can see it there. And I was a little concerned about that they might hang up on the rod straps, but like I said, 3.5 years later, no problems at all. Here's a picture showing the holes that I drilled coming from the rod locker into the middle box. As I mentioned earlier, I did not use the 2 conductor wire in the first time I did this, so that's why there's actually 2 holes and 2 wires. No big deals. Okay, here shows the vent from the rod locker under to the console, and that's where the wires start out. That's for my front highway. It runs from that courtesy light through this vent and up into this first rod box where I put my first light strip. Here shows just a picture of the live well light that comes with a lot of the kits, or you can buy those individually if you just want live well lights. For the rear compartments, this is a hole from back under the rear hatch in the battery compartment, where I drilled up into the basically the tackle compartments in the back. And I used a lot of silicone. You can see I put a lot of it on there, and I've never had a leak. No problem. Then this one right here shows the rear deck lights, where I came straight off the strip, straight down into there. No problem at all. Works great. So use zip ties and duct tape to hide your wires. Get them up out of the way. You don't want them hanging around back there. However you want to do that, it's fine. So just a couple other tips and tricks. Watch the install videos on BluewaterLED.com. You can also watch some similar videos on YouTube. I unfortunately did not video myself when I put these together, so I don't have any video of actually the install. But I do have some on some like kayaks and stuff like that if you want to watch some of my other videos on YouTube. Practice stripping those wires with your wire strippers before you do it. That's probably a good idea. It's not hard to do, you just might need a little bit of practice. And like I said, if you're not familiar with something, just Google it. Tons of information out there on all of these different topics on how to do these things. Typically when I'm wiring up a 12-volt system like this, I do it this way. I just twist them together like this, and then I'll use a wire nut or electrical tape. A lot of times if I have the wire nuts handy, I'll use those, and then I'll follow it up with electrical tape. Here's some other examples of what you could do. These I don't like. They look kind of loose. In these right here, that tape's not nearly tight enough. So this one right here shows 3 ground wires all wired together with a wire nut, and basically you'll, like I said earlier, you'll use your wire strippers, strip the ends, twist them together, and you've got a good solid connection. This is how I usually do it. Right or wrong, that's how I like to do it. So this right here, those don't look like good connections. They'd come loose. I wouldn't do them like that. So feel free to share this guide with anybody. You know, hopefully it'll help some people out.